All right, here we are,
Hello.
Kubecon. Welcome to the second episode of the Engine Room Show.
Live from Kubecon Europe in Amsterdam.
Yeah. So we carved out ourselves a little corner of a little slice of heaven over here in the corner of the auditorium, and we thought we'd bring on a couple of special guests. We've got a gentleman from HCS that's going to be talk a little bit about what they do over there. We've got some folks from our dev organization that are going to be jumping in on the stream, and our illustrious community manager, Hannah Olette.
They'll be coming along one at a time throughout the next couple of hours. At first, I think we're going to talk a little bit about, our experience has been at KubeCon so far.
Yeah.
It's only the second minutes out of 3 days. So, we're halfway through it pretty much by now. So
yeah, we've been here a while, though. I mean, I came in Monday evening,
yeah,
which
so
is a
did
couple
I.
days before.
Yeah.
So
We've
we had
had
a nice
time
team dinner.
Yeah. We've had time to explore Amsterdam a little bit. See what's up.
Yep.
Nice.
We went and got some those terrible fries that decimated me in the middle down in.
I think it was the sauce, the mayo sauce.
Yeah, down in
Probably too
Dylen.
much mayo.
Yeah, mayo's bad on fries. Anyway,
Oh, yeah.
I don't know what I was thinking. I think it's because they use the word truffle, and I was like, oh yeah, okay.
Truffles. Yeah,
Truffle mayonnaise. Maybe they'll cancel each other out. I don't know, but I was wrong. I was absolutely wrong. So yeah. So what you got? You did a little thing with Red Hat, right?
Yeah, I did a landing talk yesterday. Reported to you about deploying Nginx with Ansible. Ansible, of course. Well, not of course. Ansible is a configuration management tool to provision and deploy software across all sorts of environments. And we have an Ansible role for Nginx, which I develop and maintain, which we might go into detail on some other show in the future. And Red Hat was here. They were like, "Hey, do you want to do something in our booth?" So I was like, "Yeah, sure, why not?" So that was that yesterday. Short 15-minute talk, but it was nice.
Yeah.
And you did a session this morning.
Well, I also had the Rancher talk. So
yes.
I did a short talk with Rancher yesterday, where we did the master classes where we focused entirely on dev tools and how to build dev tools from scratch on a MacBook. And then during that presentation, the crowd was pretty adamant about wanting a Windows version. So I went ahead and built the Windows version. And so I just demoed the last half of that, which is adding our ingress controller into the Rancher desktop solution, and what that looks like on Windows, running inside VS Code and using WSL2.
Things have certainly changed since the days where no one wanted to go near a Windows computer. Nowadays, Windows,
honestly, once you get WSL2 and a good pile of tools running, you get this thing called Oh My Posh, which is like Oh My ZSH.
Yeah.
And then you add in a Powerline font and do all that fancy stuff, some extensions. It's pretty I would say analog with a Mac experience. It's not quite a Linux experience, but I don't think there's ever going to be an experience where you're developing for Linux on a different platform that's better than developing for Linux on Linux.
Well, obviously,
right?
that only makes sense.
But it was good. It went real well. That should show up on Rancher's channel. And then, this morning we had a couple talks. Later on, we'll have Hannah Olette on, and she did a talk on building global communities, which was fantastic. So she'll probably talk a little bit about that. And then I talked about working with the Ingress SIG. The gentleman that runs the Ingress SIG goes by the name of James Strong. He's the SIG lead. We talked about the lifespan of a CVE and what it takes to pull that through a remediation process for Nginx Core, and what that looks like after it leaves Nginx Core, and then it goes out into the wild and gets to the distros and the packaging entities, as well as what Ingress-Nginx uses it for. So I thought the tech it was a packed room.
The room was packed.
So, it was really good.
Standing room only, which it's a little bit of a merit. Like the only session I've seen so packed yet here for now has been the PlayStation session that was yesterday. PlayStation managed to feel like one of the huge breakout rooms.
No PlayStation for us.
Yeah, no, we tried, but when we arrived 5 minutes before the session, which should be plenty of time to get a seat, but no.
Yes.
Nope.
Yes. So the highlights for the food, definitely the waffles, Stroop waffles, and whatever the waffle was today.
It was just like a sugar candied waffle. It was good.
Yeah, it was the dessert, but it was definitely the highlight of the meal. The rest of it was kind of
conference food, right?
Conference food.
Kubecon, it is what it is.
Exactly.
Great.
Exactly. What?
Message from India says that.
Oh, okay.
Oh, hey. Oh, by the way, we do have chat
Yes.
on a laptop right in front of here,
Yep.
but it's very,
Very
small, and we only have one.
And Umesh, I will wave to you from India. Thank
Yeah.
you. Love from Amsterdam to India.
Yes.
Thanks for joining the.
I'll also
joining
say
the
we
stream.
are joined here by Marco, our fantastic video producer, you don't see him right now, but is right behind the camera. It's the one who's actually telling us when there's a question in chat.
So
look at the chat and see what's going on.
Marco is pulling off a minor miracle, which is basically, double laptops, all this crazy gear, and
I'm going to take a photo of him just for posterity.
This is really like the equivalent.
Actually,
those things in the mall where they do like the pop-up dances or whatever, and it's like a bunch of people look like they're walking around, and all of a sudden it's like boom, there's like a dance recital.
I think this will be a great photo to
This
share
is
on
like
Twitter,
a pop-up stream, but Marco's responsible for all the choreography.
Yeah, we even had to do like a last-minute laptop change, like all the things were going on. It's like it's kind of crazy, and yet it works.
Yeah. Except I was walking across the convention hall, and I looked at the Cube, I think is the name of the show, and their setup is like crazy. They got stages, and giant panel lights, and a full broadcast studio that's basically sitting inside of Kubecon. So we're just doing our little piece of something here. Well, so we're gonna do
maybe in a couple of years we'll be there.
Maybe.
Hashtag
Here's
dream.
hoping, right? Here's hoping. All right. So anything else you can think of?
What's been your highlights so far? Has there been any highlights?
I would say for me, the highlights are going to be the people that I get to meet. So the gentleman we're going to bring on here, I met through a mutual colleague, gentleman by the name of Benoit Schipper, and he is going to come on. And so it was really nice to meet him in person. He lives here in the Netherlands, and I got to talk to James Strong and Robert from Rancher. So I really like seeing people that I see on video all the time, but I get to see them live, when Kubecon rolls around.
And this day and age where everyone has become so remote, events like this are probably one of the only times of the year where you get to see other people and have real interactions and be like, hey, I've seen you over Zoom for the last 2 years. It's nice to actually put a body to that face.
Exactly. And it goes without mentioning, I finally get to meet my co-host in person for the first time ever. So yeah, we're literally, we can touch each other. So hopefully that doesn't become a technology in the future, but it works for now. So yeah, how about you? What are some highlights for you?
Meeting people is always a highlight, like you said.
Yeah.
The other major highlight probably has been just the events going on, which it seems like a minor thing to point out. But the events that are going on with Kubecon, they usually put some crazy events together. Like yesterday, there was a real life Pac-Man going on, which is like, how do people even? They're like driving little cartwheels, trying to eat each other, wearing like giant Pac-Man costumes, which I was like, but why? Yeah, it was crazy.
I missed that. You know what I did see though? That like Oompa band that was going around. The guys that all looked like like knockoff versions of Mario with the fake mustaches.
Yeah,
and they were really good. I took a video of it.
Marco
wants to share that on the YouTube channel later. So
I think that's it on our show. We still have like a day and a half to go.
Yep.
Like a day because this evening, this is what we're doing, right? So
yep.
And we'll see what happens tomorrow.
Yeah, but after this, we'll talk so we can finally relax. Let our hair down. Yeah. Or I can let my hair down. You can't do that.
I mean, I've had very long hair in the past.
I could imagine you with your flowing hair.
Yeah, I can pull it off. I have very good quality hair. So my stylist
you should be on the cover of a romance novel.
Oh yeah.
All right. Well,
we
great.
Have someone else saying hi. I don't know how to pronounce your name, so I'm just gonna say hi back. Not butcher it. I'm sorry. But yeah.
Right back. More love from India. We got a lot of love from India.
That's what happens when we stream at a time that India folks can actually join instead of like
that is true. We're very, very happy you guys could join us. Absolutely.
So
what do we got? We're about 10 minutes after. What do you say we call somebody on?
Yeah.
I bet Benoit can talk for a little longer. What do you think, Benoit?
It's right over there.
Well, he's got to turn his mic on, and he'll come in. So you go ahead. pull up a chair, and then we'll get you in the stream there.
Having technical issues, but momentarily.
Yeah, we're doing this live, so
I also keep pointing at the laptop with the chat, not to the camera. They're not one thing with the other, so
all right.
The camera.
All right. Well,
Lights, action.
Welcome
Hello.
to the stream. It's good to have you. This is my recently but now good friend Benoit Skipper. Did I get that right?
Yeah, that's correct.
All right. Awesome. And he's from an HCS. And why don't you go ahead and give yourself an intro?
Sure. I work for HCS about 4 years now. We've been growing. We're an engineering company. We do services, consulting, and secondment. We're about 80 people now. We've grown in the last few years, but we're growing steadily. We don't want to grow for the sake of growing.
Yeah.
We want to grow steadily and keep the same quality as well.
That's prudent.
We're a Dutch company focusing on Netherlands. We're sort of branching out. We got some customers now in Denmark and in Belgium, so we're sort of branching out. We stand for helping clients succeed, and that might sound a bit cheesy, but it's actually what we truly mean.
I thought that was amazing. When you told me that the first time we met, we were having the Zoom call, and I was like, oh, no kidding. I had no idea because I didn't read into the about and whatnot. But I think it's a fantastic acronym.
Yeah, it echoes throughout the company. So when we go to a company, we actually sit down with them first and sit down together with them first and say like, so where do you want to go from here, or where do you want to go? What is your current situation? And then we see if there's any sparks and see if we can work together. If not, equally good friends.
Yep.
If so, we go full on and we help them not only through the technical transition, but also through the whole cultural transition. I think in all the implementations that I've done in the past 4.5 years in consulting, I think 90% has been cultural difficulties that I've been running into. And that's where we're good at. I mean, we're basically using technical change, but we're also on top of that we're facilitating the cultural change.
Yeah, and speaking of good friends, as I understand it, you met through one of our mutual colleagues at NGINX.
Yeah.
And he's the one who first introduced you to NGINX
way back. When I was working for a big global corporate. I think it's 10 years ago. And I met Anton Huiskens. He's the Dutch guy that introduced me to NGINX. Sorry, my voice is dying.
That's okay.
And second day, a lot of people don't have voices.
I've just been talking all
Your
day.
colleague James, like during the morning session, was like, "I've just been raving all night long. You don't have any voice left."
Exactly. Well, he said he went to karaoke.
Yeah.
He went. He called it Kubioke or something like that.
It was like till midnight. Right?
I think that was like a.
Oh, it was only about midnight and then just kept going.
I think it was like a Kubecon version of karaoke, which sounds excellent. Actually, it sounds like it would be a lot of fun. So
who knows?
But for NGINX, for me, it's been a long ride already. Using it, I've been first of all 10 years ago when Anton introduced me, I was very interested. We were still using mostly hardware to do any of our networking infrastructure, and I wanted to move away. I wanted it to be a bit more flexible. So I wanted to use VMs. We were using hyperscalers at that point. At some point of VMware. And I wanted to utilize that to be a bit more flexible to the demand on what the business needs.
Yeah.
We were changing a lot. We were doing a lot for our customers, but every time we needed to procure hardware, there's the cost, there's the whole shebang that comes with it, and it just takes too long.
Yeah.
And I did do a lot of I did do some in NGINX there, but at some point I left that company because they were stuck in their ways. I wanted to go and automate stuff as well. I wanted to use Ansible to deploy NGINX, et cetera, et cetera. I wanted to go that way. And then actually HCS came around the corner, and we found each other, and now I adore working here, basically. So
Yeah. Now, it was interesting because I remember you and I were talking. I mean, we talked for a really long time the first time we met, and we kind of talked about that whole journey, how the Kubernetes journey is not so dissimilar to that journey from when we first got introduced to virtualization solutions. Like the first time you installed VMware on, I think it was Linux originally, but and you could spin up a box and you're like, hey, check this out. I can use like the resources already on this box to do it. But Kubernetes has kind of made the same journey.
Yeah.
So
yeah, you're right. Yeah.
So what I'm curious about is are there any like interesting stories you could share with us about like modern implementations of or how you're using Nginx at least
Sure.
today?
Yeah, with a customer that I've recently switched customers, but the customer that I've been using Nginx for the past 3 years, I've been working with micro front ends. So
Okay.
that's something that was very interesting to me. When I first came there, we had just one deployment on Kubernetes. By the way, we were using OpenShift, and we had one deployment, and it was just one monolithical front end, and we were serving that on Nginx.
Okay.
And at some point, because we were doing everything in the back end as microservice, and the front end sort of became a monolith, right? Because you have one deployment. You can, of course, scale it with multiple pods, but it becomes a bit clunky. And we wanted to separate those concerns. We wanted to be able to also upgrade parts of the front end and not the whole front end. So at that point, we started to look at utilizing Nginx to also facilitate that micro front end infrastructure.
Okay.
And that allowed us to scale our front end as well. So we cut our front end into logical segments, and each segment would then provide its thing, but the end user would only see the front end as a whole thing. He would not notice a thing at all on that it would be multiple deployments, multiple pods. And in that way, we could scale tremendously. We could focus on changes only participating to that single segment, to that front end. So you also have low risk of breaking things, or
Yep,
lower
yep.
risk of breaking things. And that allowed us to Nginx basically allowed us to do all the trafficking that comes with it, because it wasn't as easy. The learning curve was pretty high, but it was because I was working in a team that has never done DevOps before, so we were doing everything from scratch, mostly developers, and I was just put in that team as an SRE with the operations head on, and then we had to make some of
And for the
ourselves.
folks out there that don't know what an SRE is,
Yeah.
explain to them what that is.
Yeah, so SRE is site reliability engineering. Yeah, I actually wrote a book on it. It's in Dutch, unfortunately, but it's a book based on how to implement SRE in the Netherlands. The reason I talk about the book is because the Netherlands is quite a bit different than, of course, than the US, where SRE actually originated.
Mhm. And that's the one where you use the octopus analogy. right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly. So was it the master? Was it the jack of all trades, master of none, sort of thing?
Yep.
So as an SRE, you should be able to focus highly and do technical things, but also you should be able to stand from far away, look at the whole situation, maybe even discuss with maybe architecture and business, and see what the demand, or what the ask is, what they need done, and then translate that into the team and technical infrastructure. But yeah, there's a whole lot of things on SRE. We can talk for another hour if you want to talk about
it
that.
is a deep topic. I mainly just wanted, if anybody didn't know what the acronym is, in this industry, as with every piece or edge or nook and cranny of the computer industry, we're basically inundated with acronyms. So
Sure.
You can probably say a full sentence just saying
you just
acronyms.
I think somebody actually has done that in the past.
Yeah,
There's
it was a
there's
while we
meme
joke
or
with
two
your team
about
too,
that.
like, this is stupid, and we would
Yeah.
like stupid full sentences. with
Yeah,
acronyms.
exactly.
It's a little bit too much.
So, I guess what we talked a little bit on our first show about, this is kind of a softball question, but we talked a little bit about it on our first show about how we've heard like a million different weird pronunciations of Nginx. And I think, if I recall, in the last conversation, you had a really interesting one. It was
think
it wasn't on the stream. It wasn't one we'd heard before.
Wasn't it? I tried to portray it in the chat. I think it was Nginx.
Nginx. Okay.
So,
okay. So
and
we've heard that a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, no, the one that I did hear yesterday here at Kubecon was Nginx. And that one threw me off for a loop, because there was this guy who was talking to me about how he knows about Nginx and everybody loves Nginx, and he just kept saying it nonstop. And at some stage, I didn't correct him.
Yeah, but we won't say where that happened, right?
No, I won't say where that happened, but I don't know. It just
That
blew
might
my
not
mind.
be,
I was like, I don't know how you came to that pronunciation. Like, Nginx, I can get it, makes sense why you will call it Nginx, but Nginx, I don't know.
So, in the same vein as before, tell us a little bit. What are some of the highlights that you've had since you just arrived like a couple of days ago, right?
Well, yeah, sure. Yeah, no,
I
I
mean,
can
not
give
in
it.
the Netherlands.
No,
You've been here for a while.
I've been in for a while.
Yeah.
I think my first Kubecon activity was Tuesday evening.
Tuesday.
One
Okay.
of one of
All right.
those get-togethers or co-located events.
So, what are some highlights?
One of the things that I've seen is that we do see a lot of software providers here. Obviously, you
Yeah.
see all sorts, everybody providing software. Some of them even solving the same thing or are in the same area. I don't see a lot of companies portraying services. So companies like ours, we use this type of software to go out and help customers.
Yeah.
That are in need of help or that want help, and it's one of the things I've seen also in the past KubeCons. I think it will be interesting to also give a bit more spotlight to those companies to help, or at least have a showcase or a keynote where we could have not a solution case, but also show something where we went to a customer, this was their problem, this was the solution that we got to together, basically in sort of a story mode way. I think that would be pretty cool.
That would be pretty.
There
cool.
were some customers, obviously, but it's always been, for example, companies themselves doing a solution, or it's been a software solution. That's something I see or I want to see more of. Basically, I think that would be interesting to see.
Interesting.
And I've seen a lot of I see more when I compare it to Valencia, for example. I
Yes.
see more and more on cost saving and on cost saving Kubernetes or scaling Kubernetes or automating everything around cost saving or reliability as well.
Well, budgets are tight these days. So, and I think that's just across the board, across the globe, and across the board in every country right now. So, so I know during our original discussion, we talked about pros and cons, and I'll put you in the hot seat here a little bit, and let me just go ahead and click something real quick.
Okay, sure.
Do that. I'm not sure if that's me or Marco that is down. It's probably
That will be okay.
All right, we're still good.
Well, technical
All right.
difficulties on the chat
Yeah,
laptop.
the chat's down for us, so you're gonna have to watch that. So, so one of the things we talked about was the good and the bad when it comes to Nginx. So we're not gonna pull any punches. We know that there are things that we can improve on.
Sure.
So the hot seat I'm gonna put you in, and I know it
Sure,
won't bother
go
you
ahead.
at all
No,
because you
it's
said
okay.
I'd be more than happy to talk
Tell
about
me
this.
how much you love
Yeah,
Nginx.
I know.
And don't say anything
What
bad.
if you were looking right into the camera over there? That's
I'll be
the great
kind.
thing.
I'll be kind.
Yes, and tell the product managers at Nginx if you could have one thing out of the Nginx product org, what would it be?
I have to say it from the point of an SRE.
Yes. All right.
It's being able to integrate metrics straight away from Nginx.
Interesting. And what technology would you like to do that with?
As long as I can contact like the stop status option, I think you guys have.
Yes.
As long as I can get that information in
Well,
key
there's one
value
in
pair.
particular we talked about this morning.
Oh, yeah.
I'm doing
Yeah.
this for a mutual colleague of ours by the name of Dave. He actually is our,
I know where you're
technical
going.
evangelist. So I'm coaxing this out of you for this morning's discussion, and because we talked about it just after the talk today, and
There is one word.
Yeah. There's one type. It begins with an O and also begins with a T, and it has a special place in
It's 10-letter
in our
word.
colleague's heart.
Yeah, open telemetry, I would say.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's definitely. I mean, I was surprised also. I didn't know it was there, so it's good to know that it's out there. Something like that would be great if we could use that sort of in a plugin way with Nginx. Just
And
build-
with Nginx proper, and
Exactly.
not just community.
Yeah. No. Throughout the product properly.
Yeah.
Would be great. At the moment, when I would in the previous experiences, I would have to transfer those stop status metrics into key value pairs, and then grab that with Prometheus, and then I could finally use that. And I would love to do it without the step. I would love to do it without a sidecar because that's just unnecessary toil. It would be great to have that as well. So if there's anyone from you guys listening at the moment, if you could do that, or if you need me to convince someone, then just you can contact me, and I'll definitely show you why I want to have an integrated experience. Because I don't only have Nginx. I have my Nginx, I have my backend, I have my middleware, I have my cluster, there's so much going on, and I want to have an integrated place where I can put everything together. Yeah.
Excellent. All right. So, any questions that you can think of?
Man,
not,
I
not
can
to put
think
you on
of
the spot, but
no,
I'm putting you
no,
on the spot.
no. I was gonna think of another hot topic, which kind of goes back to that little microservices March project that Nginx did in the March. Mentioned transitioning from monoliths to microservices. What's your opinion on monoliths versus microservices?
Wow. I deal with a lot of customers that they still have COBOL. So
Wow.
let's talk about
Yeah,
monoliths,
you
right?
said financials, right?
Yeah, well, government
Like in a
financials.
galaxy
There's
far away.
and the thing is, it's very difficult to go back and have 30 years of functional changes and then build something from scratch in a new language or something like that. It's
Yeah.
very difficult, and the reason and for that reason you see a lot of the times you see that the front end, for example, is built then on top of that, or like new front end like JavaScript or Angular or stuff like that is built on top of that infrastructure, and then it just grows and grows, and at some point nobody knows COBOL anymore, and then it dies.
Yep.
I think it's definitely a danger, and
It is.
I think it's going to be a big problem. But especially in Europe or in Netherlands, we don't really throw away software. It's our problem. I think it's a little bit more common in the US to build something maybe and then after a while renew it or rebuild it or something like that.
Yeah,
And
find a
if you keep
replacement.
going in that flow, you don't really, well, you do obviously waste time, but you keep going forward. And in the Netherlands, we're very particular on trying to. There's a Dutch word called koester. It's like it's my little bit of my pet, and we want to keep using it and add functionality and integrate it even more, and then it just becomes this monolith within your organization. So it's a very hard discussion. And it's a problem that we are facing a lot. A lot of our customers, I mean, HP UX, for example, is stopping soon, and they have to move to Linux, for example. So we get more and more of those customers that need to make a transition now or have big problems in the coming 5 to 10 years.
Yeah, and I'm old enough to have remember, and actually not too long ago, and I would imagine some of these big financial companies are still running on them. They're literally, I don't know if you guys remember, it was like an 80s movie called War Games, and they had the Whopper.
Yeah.
Well, I won't say the company I was at, but they had 4 of those that looked like the Whopper, and they were AI Xboxes, right? And probably everything written in COBOL, and it's their trading software, right? So that's their bread and butter. So if they have to change that, it's like, okay, when do we replace this? How do we replace this, right?
Especially how, right? Like, how do you break the monolith, right?
Yeah.
It's what part are you going to cut off?
For 30 some odd years.
Yeah, it's a multi-headed dragon, basically.
Yes, it is. Yes,
it's dangerous.
The big green
I hope
dragon.
that sort of answers your question with probably many more questions.
Actually, yes, you said.
Say.
Have you seen any good swag in any of the booths?
Yeah. I also like the non-swag. There's there's a quarter store all the way over there.
Oh yeah,
You can buy lots of cool stuff. You should definitely check that out if you are at Kubecon. It's really cool.
Can I just say, I think it's a little bit weird that you go to a conference at Kubecon and you pay, company pays for your ticket to Kubecon, and then you pay for swag.
I think it says there's a sign for some of the swag.
You get a t-shirt for free, at least
well,
with that.
For some of the swag, it also goes to a good cause as well, right?
Okay, I did not see that. That's a good.
I bought, for example, Open Telemetry shirt because I love Open Telemetry. I think it's a great initiative.
Yep.
So yeah, I think it's just supporting what I love for me as well.
Yeah,
so
that's.
I try to turn it around a little bit. Of course, it costs money, but yeah.
Yeah, and to some degree, we have to understand that while there's plenty of contributing members in the CNCF, it still runs on its member support. So,
well, yeah, fundamentally, yeah.
And plus, we still have to fund those 50 books, right? So, you laugh, but that is literally the first video I ever watched on Kubernetes. Like, I don't even know how many years ago, because it was like the same year that KubeCon started happening. The guy published that book published a YouTube video where he had the Fippy and his friends.
Yeah,
and he was trying to.
It's an all-time classic.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
I
didn't notice. Or you wearing like Nginx socks?
Of course, yeah. I came prepared. Yeah.
I don't even have a pair of those.
Yeah, I don't have a pair of those. Where do you get the socks? Like, how?
I got them from Anton. I went to the Dutch office and it was really cool. There was like a little closet where we had swag basically, and he said, "I'm opening the door. Have fun."
Yeah.
So I just
I've got
few socks
these guys.
and stuff like that.
These are the KubeCon socks from Kubecon #1.
Oh,
So-
they're not on camera.
Oh, here you go. The
Oh my
Oh,
God.
yeah, there you
from-
go. There you go.
from Kubecon #1, right there,
Classic.
out of Seattle. That's where these socks came from. So I call they're my lucky Kub. Whenever I'm building anything in Kubernetes, I put these socks on, and it always works. So I'm convinced that they, you know how basketball players have their lucky shoes, and I've got my lucky.
You got your
socks.
lucky socks.
Yeah, exactly.
Not an issue.
Hey,
Doesn't
you
matter.
know-
Just put on your socks.
You know, I could have used a few pairs of lucky socks when I was working with OpenStack, but Kubernetes is a little simpler.
Definitely, yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Cool.
all
All right.
Well, I think yeah, we're right at about 30 minutes after. So, how long were we planning? on?
Oh, I slot like half an hour per person, give or
Okay,
take.
okay, so you got lots more time.
If you want to
lots
stay
more
around,
time.
I mean, if you want to go, we could just shoot the shit ourselves.
Yeah,
but
we could shoot the crap about whatever, really.
Sure.
Doesn't really matter.
It does smell like popcorn, though. I will say,
Oh,
There's
and
a
it's driving
popcorn
me
machine
crazy.
that's
I
right
need
over there.
popcorn. So at some stage, I might just randomly disappear and come back with a bucket full of
yeah,
popcorn.
yeah, yeah.
The same. I think you all know.
So, anything you want to talk about?
Wow.
Open,
Tell us about your book.
Open book.
About my book.
Are you gonna
Oh,
today
your
to change
book.
it?
Yeah,
When
let's
is it
talk
coming
about
out?
the book.
I
It's-
printed as a
it's-
joke, but also didn't realize it's actually true.
Yes.
It's available in ebook for download still for free.
Yeah.
Yep.
And
It's only
there's
Dutch for now, right?
it's
When
in
is the
Dutch for
English
now.
translation coming out?
Well, you can always help me.
That was not our proposal to
So, step 1, learn Dutch. Step 2, translate Dutch into.
So the thing about the reason why I wrote it in Dutch is because I mentioned a little bit before.
Yeah.
The situation in the Netherlands is completely different than in a lot of other countries when it comes to IT organizations.
Do you know if that's only in the Netherlands or is
It
it more like
is-
Western Europe
it's
kind of deal?
Maybe Netherlands, Belgium, they're a little bit sort
Okay.
of one-offs. It's a bit weird. We're kind of stubborn, I guess. We adopted something
Consistent.
in the 80s. It's called there's a guy called Van Looyen, very Dutch name, he's Dutch, and we adopted that system where we have functional behavior. Let's just call it management, functional management, applicative management, and infrastructure management.
Mhm,
And then at some point we introduced technical application management, and that sits in between applications or application management and infrastructural management. I hope you guys still follow. That's why I have pictures in the book, but
Yeah.
it's a bit
Yeah,
it's a
I'm-
bit weird. So there's the triangle. Yeah, okay, cool. I can show you the pictures later.
I am following.
So technical application management will be sort of stuck in the middle.
Yeah.
Let's call it that. They would be responsible for taking the application when it comes out of test or something, and then getting it into acceptance and then going to production. That would be the normal workflow of that person. So that person would be highly specialized in getting the application to production. The thing is that what SRE solves that this role did not solve is that it's a very reactive role in its nature. You're getting the application, and then you can have an opinion about it, but nobody's going to listen to you. They just tell you get it to production, and they go home. They sleep restless nights, or they sleep good nights, and all the technical application people that get your application to production, they get called at 3 a.m. when it's broken, and it's a very reactive role.
No, you will not.
Exactly, and I was in
Yeah.
this role as a network engineer as well.
Yeah.
It was not really application to production, but I was in that role. I know exactly how it feels to work 10 hours a day and then afterwards at 3 a.m. get called and work and then have another day afterwards. It's completely chaotic. I don't
Yeah.
ever want to work like that anymore.
Yeah, I think everybody, if you've had a good career, especially in the tech industry, like my horror stories are back in the 2000s where we were doing like 6-month crunch times and literally people were putting in PTO requests for weekends and they always joke about being stuck in a room and having them like feed you coffee and slide pizzas under the door. I literally lived that for like 6 months, and I was like, yeah, I don't want to do that anymore.
I've had a situation once, and I've never even told this then. Now you're thinking.
Well, now you can tell it to a lot
This
of
is a
people.
bit weird.
World
So
premiere.
I've had a situation once where I didn't leave.
You heard it here first.
I had a situation once where I didn't leave my apartment for 1.5 months.
Oh.
It was just project work, outages,
Good
project
Lord.
work, outages. And I was living alone, so I wasn't bothering anyone by it. So
Yeah.
just me. But that was weird, getting groceries sent to your doorstep. With COVID, a lot of people did have it that way.
Yeah.
But for
yeah.
me back then, it was really weird.
Yeah, this was pre-COVID, right?
Yeah, this was
Like
that's
during
more,
COVID, I would have understood.
like 10
like,
years
okay,
ago or
whatever,
so.
but-
When I was still young, right?
Yeah.
When I still didn't have any gray hairs from all the sleepless nights.
I don't want to hear about gray hairs.
to.
I got a few more on you, right?
I think
always-
it's better if you're overall turning gray or something like that than if you have like certain spots like
I look
have.
at these as
Like
like
stress
every single
spots.
one of
Yeah,
these
stress.
represents a failure condition, right? So, and because I have so many, I failed a lot, which means I must have learned a lot, right? Yeah.
So just going back, just going back on the book, right? So what SRE then solves is that it, instead of having the role as a technical application management person, being very reactive, you're shifting a bit more to proactive. You're working together with the development team. If you're either outside or inside, as long as you're working with the development team, you're trying to get it as reliable and as stable as possible before it even goes to test.
Okay.
Which the feedback loop that creates is amazing, and also shifting left with getting the responsibility not only to the person that's with the operations hat on and shifting it to the whole team. For in the beginning, they're like, yeah, that's really good, then we work together, and then they hear, but you're also going to get called at 3 a.m. and then they're like, I don't really want to do this at all anymore. So it's a whole paradigm shift where you, it's basically you're forcing them to make good software or else, right? You're
Yeah.
putting them into that position, and it's sort of a healthy position because you take ownership. I think it's really good. And another example on that is that if we get tickets or if we get end user problems, the developers are in contact with them directly, and we can solve those problems very quickly because they already have the context. We don't have to go through 10 layers of translations.
Yep.
Or even lose information, which is even worse because then it takes longer to diagnose a problem. I think it's the feedback loop again, and working together and making something and having the ownership is really big. And the role in SRE then what the role of SRE adds to that is that it's just like with the operations head on with your, like T-shaped people. You have people that are really good at developing and really a little bit good in testing or something like that, or really good in testing and a little bit in developing. The SRE would be the person that sits either in the DevOps team or is in a centralized team, depending on the size of your company, who would then focus on reliability things and maybe even servicing things that help developers spin up things faster or stuff like that, focusing highly on reliability.
And for the folks out there, what is the if you speak Dutch or read Dutch? I'm sorry, read Dutch. What's the very clearly what is the title of the book and where can they find it?
It's you can find I probably maybe drop a link somewhere. You can find it on our website if you Google HES SRE and book. You find it, and let me try and translate it. It's actually polder SRE, and polder is a Dutch word. In the Netherlands, we don't have a lot of land, or did not have a lot of land. We still don't have a lot of land, but we don't have. We had less land before, so we just make land from sea, and that's something. That process is called, well, poldering. It's something that's a bit of it's a Dutch thing.
And one of the tours that I went on when I was here last, they talked about how that it is very common because the land is always sinking into the sea. So basically, you're just putting more sand.
At this point, we're 12 meter under sea level. 12, I don't know, 12 meter to feet. That would be 36 feet or something.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah.
But you guys have a lot. You have a pretty significant. What is it like
dike?
Yeah,
it's a dike system.
Yeah, I thought that. I mean, I'm not by any stretch. I like engineering in general, so even civil engineering. So that whole process of them telling us about that, how that was built and why it was built, and they show that diagram where everything's like down here and this is where the dike is at. That was pretty cool. That's one of the most interesting things about the Netherlands in general is that virtually the entire country was basically a swamp.
Exactly, and we're all together fighting the sea, basically.
Yes,
and that's the goddess.
That's why if you have any problems with water, call the Dutch.
That's actually a thing. Yeah,
it is true.
Yeah.
I've never heard that.
They call that hydrology, hydro engineers, or something like that. Yeah, moving water around. There's
moving water around
no place
engineers.
In the world
That's
where
what they call
do
them.
better. Yeah. So very cool. Very cool.
It's the title is Polder SRE, so POLDER and then space SRE. You can find it on our website. I think you can download it there. If you Google those words, you should find the link. Maybe you're probably going to put the link in it. Probably going to put it in the chat. Oh, cool. There it is. It's still available for free as well. We did get an ISBN, so we might actually go and sell it at some point, but then only the physical copy. And then we're gonna take it down from the site. So if you still want a copy, get it now.
There you go.
Yeah, that's it. And the subtitle of the book is an octopus between Dutch tulips. So tulips are a Dutch staple, even though though they are technically Turkish.
Yeah.
But we
They
import
grow quite nicely here.
exactly.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
so it's sort of a Dutch staple, and the reason I mentioned octopus is because of the fact that I mentioned the jack of all trades, master of none.
Yeah.
You have
Yeah.
to be able to do a lot of things as an SRE, but you don't have to be the expert always. You should be able to zoom in, but you don't have to always be the expert in one thing.
Yes. Yes.
All
All right. So,
Exactly.
any final words before we wrap up and prepare for the next speaker?
Get my metrics into Nginx, please. The way that I want them, that would be great. I think it would be very good.
I
And
have opinions on metrics, and you will listen to them.
yes. And again, if you need me, just you know where to find me.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And
Oh.
yeah, go ahead.
And you're going to be joining us at Sprint this year, I believe.
Yeah, that would be great. Yeah, you asked me if I could join for Sprint, and
Yep,
I'll
yep.
definitely be there.
We'll be doing like a fireside chat style thing, probably a little more structured than the engine room, but
Yeah.
I know I won't make that mistake. I'm trying not to make that mistake. Yeah, I named the show, but I keep calling it the wrong name. So we're going to be doing Sprint, so we'll see you again, fireside chat style, which I think will be pretty fun.
Yeah.
Maybe we can come up with some creative way to set that up. I don't know. It's all virtual, so
It's all virtual, yeah.
yeah. So maybe
It'll be less cool than this.
We'll get marketing to build us some fireside chat graphics and
We might already
something
have
like
one.
that. Yeah, some flickering lights. and
Yeah.
whatnot. So
Cool.
all right.
Thanks
Well,
a lot. Appreciate it.
Thank you for coming on.
Appreciate it.
It's
Thanks
good
a lot.
to see you, and
Good to
it was
see you.
really
Yes.
awesome to
Thank
meet
you.
you in
Nice to
person.
Yes.
And go check out his book. Check out HES's website.
Cool. Thanks a lot.
All right.
Thanks
For
a lot
sure.
both. Thanks for everyone out there, and I'll see you around.
All right.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Take care.
I keep forgetting the camera is up there. Like there. I keep looking there because that's where the chat is.
All right. So you want to set up the next guest?
Yes. So coming soon. To live stream near your home/computer.
Is this where we need the echo effect going on?
Yeah, like a very deep voice, you know.
Yeah.
I'm gonna play like some heavy drums and whatnot. Background. Now, I lost my train of thought. Okay, yeah, coming soon is getting ready right behind the cam. Well, yeah, with Marco right behind the camera right now is Timo Stark. Do you know what his current title is?
I don't. Senior
He's
awesome
cha-
engineer.
Yes,
of awesomeness.
that works. He's
Yeah.
changed titles a few times. But basically, he's an amazing engineer. He really likes building cool stuff
Yes.
and cool POCs. And he's been lately working on a new Docker extension for Nginx, now that Docker Desktop has launched extensions.
Mhm.
So I think it's to talk a little bit about it.
Yeah, we're going to talk about the and there'll be a little demo as I
Yeah, I
understand it.
think so.
Okay, awesome.
Fingers crossed, it works. But yeah, right.
All right.
Well,
With that,
for the start, gentlemen. I'm gonna ask you to move the
might be
camera
a
a
little
bit.
bit out of frame for me, but that's okay.
No,
I'm just
okay,
moving
yeah.
the
That
box.
works.
Yeah.
Perfect.
You can just come a bit closer.
Oh, can I?
Oh, we
Okay.
can,
No, but you don't need to move. You're okay.
we can snuggle here a little bit.
Yeah.
So we can get together and be like good friends.
Yeah.
We're
I was
missing like
just
a
trying to
cozy
cut some
blanket we
space.
can share all together, a little
So yeah, so as I understand it, you wrote a plugin for Docker Desktop recently. Was that a
Right.
personal project?
Good question. It was basically like we had a conversation with Docker,
Okay.
and I wouldn't. It wasn't necessarily about
I was
Docker.
gonna say before going into that, you should probably introduce yourself.
Yeah,
I can. I thought it was already.
I'm very
It was
excited.
already.
Yeah,
like
but
like,
like probably have more to tell about what you do
not
today.
really.
but
Okay, sure.
It's good context for people.
We invented your title. We called you
Yeah.
the senior engineer.
Also,
of
I'm a
engi-
proud
of
some
awesomeness or
engineer or something like
that.
that. Yeah.
Awesome, perfect. So yeah, Timo Stark. I'm with Nginx since 2020. Before that, I was working in the automotive industry as an Linux sysadmin and software engineer in Germany. So yeah, and then currently working as a principal technical product manager. I
There
think
you
that's
go.
what the
So
official
technical
title
product
is.
Yes.
But it's even curious what that exactly is. So my day job is basically taking care of a lot of our open source products. including the Nginx open source or NJS, which is the JavaScript runtime for Nginx. And of course, like Nginx unit, and the Docker desktop extension. So
now we can go back to
wrapping this up and bring this back. So yeah, the Docker desktop extension project. It wasn't even a project. We had a chat and a call with Docker about some general community alliances stuff. Because like the partnership with Docker was always a good thing. And during that chat, there was like this, hey, how do you guys think about Docker desktop in general? Do you use it? What about an extension? Do you like them? Have you used it? And I was like, I've literally no idea what that is. I know Docker, I know Docker desktop, right? I've literally no idea what an extension is. What can we do with that? So then I Googled basically a little bit around, found the documentation, and then it started like this typical engineering thing. Dive into something, right? And then you get hooked up with something, and you cannot get loose of it. Like you have to do it. It's like you get
like
started.
This deep process flow, and you're like, well,
so it initially started.
Like you get something cool.
It initially started as a like, right, let's write a proof of concept, like a skeleton thing, without even a lot of functionality, just to see what's the feeling about writing a Docker desktop extension.
Okay.
So then it went very far beyond this point with it's a lot more than just a POC. So I kept going and introduced features, and this week we have released 0.03 of the Docker desktop extension. I can give a quick demo. Hopefully that will work.
Yeah, that's the goal.
So
fingers crossed again.
Yeah, let me actually do the. Let me actually try to share then. So let me see.
I'll take the chance to check Slack.
Right.
Now, have you done any work with Docker Desktop in the past?
Yeah, I mentioned it in the last episode we did. I used Docker Desktop to manage Docker on my MacBook.
Yep.
But not with it. I did see the extensions when they first announced them, and I was like, "Oh, this is interesting." I don't think I need it. I'm never gonna go near it. But beyond that, I do use Docker Desktop for general Docker management and just configuring how much system resources I allocate to Docker, since that's a very simple to use like GUI. Since it runs on a virtual machine, fundamentally, using Docker Desktop just lets you switch to be running on 8 virtual CPUs, things like that.
I did.
I look at my RAM, which is it used to be very important because I used to do a lot of builds on my local machine.
Yeah.
So every time I was gonna do a lot of builds, I increase my RAM to like the maximum of my code.
Sure.
And then I will switch it back to like 2 or gigabytes of RAM.
I did. Usage. I made pretty extensive use of it quite a while ago on Windows. I became very fascinated with remote container execution. So that part, they built a plugin. In addition to having a WSL2 plugin, they have a remote container extension that works in VS Code. And I liked the idea of that. What I liked in that particular scenario is you could do what we now know can be done with a lot of different solutions, which is basically point Docker at a GitHub repo, and it would build whatever it is that you had written into the repo for Docker to build, which I thought was really cool. And it would use the remote container execution to do that. So that was a very long time ago. In fact, extensions didn't even exist back then. I've spent a little bit of time with it, mostly on the Windows platform, though.
Yeah, I do think that's where I first started using Docker Desktop, because back in my good old days, I had a Windows machine. That's where I did all my development when I was in college. And the only way to use Docker back then on a Windows machine, to this day, actually, honestly, probably is using Docker Desktop. And I think I was using the Windows hypervisor technology.
Yeah.
So you couldn't even run Docker Desktop on all computers. You had to have like that specific advanced CPU on like Windows Pro.
Actually uses what it does is they kind of lower, they move Docker.
There's a bug and
it's an uninvited guest. I have to get rid of them.
Yes.
So basically, WSL2 runs as a virtualized machine.
You also use the hypervisor, right?
Yeah, exactly. So the original version, WSL2 1, was kind of a pain to get set up because you had to
Yeah,
actually
remember that.
install hypervisor. You had to install.
No worries.
Ubuntu, right? That's like in
No. But no. Yes, it does run. Well, it can run on any distro.
Yeah,
really,
no, but remember back then there was like this Windows Store
to
thing
get the
where you go
to
to the
get the
Windows
virtual
Store. Yeah.
to get the VM up and running.
Yeah.
You had to stand up. You had to install Hyper-V on the system first.
Oh yeah,
and
no,
then,
okay,
and then
yeah.
set the
That's
actual
actually yeah,
Hyper-V.
I think I already had
up.
Hyper-V installed like when I first tried
Yeah,
that.
exactly.
I don't know that I ever tried the Windows system for the next two. I think I've only tried the first version of it.
Oh,
Then I just transitioned to
the
Macs.
new one's much simpler. You
Yeah,
literally
that's what I
say
could do. The original was a little bit of a
install,
pain at the end. It was like a
it
good.
installs.
Yeah, the original was a good proof of concept. I was like, oh, can I run Nginx here? And yes, it did work. But any more time you started to interact with the file system or whatnot, it just became such a pain. Like, where are things located? I can't find anything.
Yeah.
We're having a little bit of technical difficulties with sharing,
Right, it's actually not working.
Oh,
but I think Timo, you can still talk about it.
Yeah.
Yes, of course.
Yeah. How about we just do that?
Yes, I will. Yeah, I will do this. As I said, for whatever reason, even with changing the system preferences, it will.
oh, really?
It's always claiming I have no permission to share. So maybe that's a
It's a sign.
it's a mech thing. No worries.
Yeah, I don't know. Doesn't
I'll
matter.
go ahead and try to actually.
Sir, thinking of things you could do, can like point the camera directly to the
Right, that's good. I mean,
screen, but
the most easiest thing you can basically do is if you have a Docker desktop running right now, go to the marketplace, and in the marketplace type Nginx, and you will find our extension.
Okay.
Hey, Timo, do you actually want to try something? We could pull the camera off.
I mean, we could. That's what I mean. Like, you can actually drag it around. It'll
Let's try
be
it. So, Timo, sit over here.
okay. Why not? Let's do it.
Let's
We're
try.
doing it live, people.
We're doing this live.
Oh, Jesus Christ! Let me see this. So it's saying open
All right. Well, I'm
system
gonna move off
preferences.
out of this area then.
All right.
Yeah.
So share your.
In fact, I'm gonna step away for a bit. I'll be
Yeah.
back. I'm gonna turn my mic off, Marco.
Let me.
So you don't have to share anything. You just bring up your own desktop. Yeah, and then I'll point here.
Does this work?
Let's see. Alessandro, can you hold this and then I'll be able to. Yeah, so come around here.
Where's the feed? Oh my gosh, this is intense.
Is it working?
Yeah.
Yeah, it is.
Actually, cool. So that's your Docker desktop extension, or that's your Docker desktop installation. Go to extensions and say browse. And in browse, you type here Nginx. And then you will find our Docker desktop extension. And then
Timo, tilt your screen just a tad.
Yeah. Can we increase the brightness? Well, I don't know the brightness. There's gonna be some glare.
That's actually
Yeah.
good.
Just make sure if you write anything, like say it out loud,
I
because
will.
the text might not be very readable.
so it's basically here Nginx. And in terms of open, it should tell you install. So tip install here. Then you will see the Nginx icon on this left navigation pane. And if you don't have a container running, it will give you basically a Docker run command. You can then issue in a terminal if you want. That's nothing super fancy. It's just a Docker run on my Mac. Do it on WSL for Windows. It works fine. Doing it on Ubuntu works fine. That will basically spin up a container, and then it will load the containers. So the extension will basically automatically detect the containers that are currently run Nginx.
Hungry Boyd.
So like if you have multiple containers not running Nginx, they should not appear here. You can click on it. And a very cool thing is, that's actually a nice trick. That's a, let's say this is a pro tip from a Docker captain to the Nginx community. As this Nginx Docker or the Docker desktop thing is basically working as a browser, you can choose your command plus and minus thing to zoom in and out inside of this view,
Okay.
right? So that is a neat trick. Good. So make this bigger so we can actually see this.
Yeah. Can you make it a little bit bigger?
No, like this.
Yeah.
So-
me with that. Yeah.
The cool thing is now that we have an Nginx configuration parser. So we parse the configuration that's basically in this default configuration file. We can tell you what ports are exposed by Nginx and what are the locations we have. And inside of configuration editor, you can choose the configuration file and can then go in here, for example, and then change the configuration file. You can delete stuff, you can add locations, you can change the server name to, let's say, cube.con for whatever reason. And the very neat thing on the Docker desktop extension is you don't have to do this docker exec whatever bin bash in your container using VI or Vim Nano to change the configuration, do it all manually. You use the extension, you choose the configuration file, you hit publish, and it will upload the configuration to your container, and it will automatically reload Nginx. So you're good here. There's no need to reload anything or do any other manual task. Just hit publish. That's all you have to do. And
That is cool.
then you see it's like it's parsed and it's cube.con here. We can add another configuration file if we want. So then we call that kubecon.conf. That's one thing we can do. Then type configuration here, but I will show you the newest feature from the latest release. It's add new virtual server. That's this little plus icon next to server. And what it will do, basically, it will give you the possibility to create Nginx configuration based on like input fields here. So configuration file name is what we did, like kubecon.conf, and it will automatically check if it's an absolute or relative path. In this case, it will place it to the confd directory. Virtual server name is kubecon.example.com. Listen port is 8080, and the upstream is, let's pick, actually when you double click, what it will do is it will load all the current running containers from the Docker network where this Nginx is connected to. So if we have like two others, we can choose from that, and it's basically what we can do is let's choose this. That's our own, basically our own.
Yeah, you're like load balance,
like,
proxying to your own.
And we are
container.
proxying to this on port 80, which is totally fine. So what we can then do is we hit publish, and you will see we'll translate basically the name of the Docker container to its internal Docker IP address, and then you hit publish. So it will generate the configuration for you. So then you're good closing this. Go to here and see kubecon.conf, and it has port 8080, the server name, the location, the proxy path, and some headers. So it's basically our first version of a configuration experience that let you generate configuration based on a user interface instead of writing Nginx configuration. It's fairly simple. It's not a real advanced use case, but it should work for most Docker installations. And yeah, it's a thing. We are around since 4 weeks on the marketplace. We hit the 5,000 download mark today, so we are in the 5,100s right now. Make sure you check the Docker desktop extension out. Try it. Let us know on GitHub. So it's
that's right. It's on GitHub too, right?
It is on GitHub. So basically, as all other stuff as well, it's open source. So you click on this little, what is that, spreadsheet, this little introduction sheet in the desktop in the marketplace, and there is a link to the support or to the organization of the publisher. And if you click, for example, on support, you will be automatically redirected to the Nginx Docker GitHub repository, to the issues page. So make sure you open the issue. Let us know any features you want to see, any requests you have, and more than happy, basically, to introduce more features into the Docker desktop extension.
Cool. What's coming next? What's the roadmap look like?
Roadmap is that I will enhance the server configuration experience, like how to add virtual servers. I will do basically the same for locations. So you can basically not just create virtual servers, but always create new locations based on an UI. It's like literally that you can configure your Nginx server in Docker with this user interface. And two other things in the pipeline currently is an export functionality, so that you can export the whole configuration of this instance to your local machine. So, for example, to put it in a more production grade environment or in a pipeline.
Yeah, like maybe we're using Docker desktop for like doing development and testing things out, and then you have obviously your production environment.
Yes, so that's the export functionality. And another very, very huge feature I'm working on right now is a template marketplace. So for example, it will be somewhere located in this top navigation where you can click on template, and then you can choose of like, I would like to use Nginx for WordPress or for like some other common use cases, and that will give you the template in as a pre-configured thing, so you can edit different things like a server name or upstream or whatever, but it will have all this specialties in the configuration already, so you can basically learn what would be a best practice configuration for WordPress or for any other proxy use case you might like. So that is the template store we are working on.
Cool. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. My arm is tired. Gonna grab some water. Which I hopefully have
Alright.
one here.
I got to see the last end of that, but you know what I'm going to go do is I'm just going to go download it and do it myself. Let me get this running again.
All right. Having microphone difficulties?
No, we're good.
Okay.
All right. I think we'll
See you
studio
testing
will be up
things.
and running. Can you hit enter studio on that?
I'll make sure you mute and stop the camera.
Yeah.
That's fine. We don't enter by default. It puts us in the wait room, but
Well, we don't
Okay.
want to hear.
I
right.
turn on the volume.
I don't want to hear your feedback. Okay.
I see how it is. I see.
I'm just
Do we
kidding, I'm
the
just
camera move it a little bit more towards the side?
That's
More
great.
like there, like 1 millimeter. I want to move it like 0.1 degrees north.
Yep. I think you're perfect there.
And then the frozen end.
Yeah, of course. All right, so we're all back in the and whatnot, and so in the
I was gonna
past,
say
I know.
that was a cool demo, and the fact
Yes.
super
Right.
cool with the camera.
Yes.
It's almost a miracle, but it worked.
Yeah, exactly. So I personally am going to go take it for a test once I get a chance to do that. I'll probably do it on Windows because I like Docker desktop on Windows for some reason. I don't know why that is. I think that was kind of the original. That was like the progenitor, and then they kind of
I
started
think
doing
so
it,
too.
extending
Was
to other
Docker Desktop for
platforms.
Windows because again you needed to enable the hypervisor and that, so it's like might as well just both those whole
Yeah.
compact package.
Plus, being a Kubernetes guy, I like to have things stacked on top of each other.
Yep.
So, like Windows with WSTil, with Ubuntu and Docker Desktop. And
See how deep can you
Yeah,
go?
exactly. Pretty soon we'll achieve Inception, that sort of thing. So, as I understand, so inside Nginx, you are known as one of the most knowledgeable people on a solution called Unit. Okay. And I understand that you have an entire YouTube series on YouTube.
Yes.
On Unit. Could you tell us a little bit about that
Sure.
series and what it involves?
So basically, we have created a tutorial series, like a really one-on-one series to get started with Unit.
Okay.
It explains what it is, what can it be used for. That's I think that's the most important thing. First, is it something for me as an engineer? Do I need to take care of it? Is it something that will make my life easier? So that's
So in that vein, real quick, tell the audience in a real brief summary what Unit is. For
Yeah.
those folks that don't know.
Sure. So Unit is our answer to simplify the application stack or the deployment stack of an application. And there's always the question, how can we do that, right? And
Yeah.
so just imagine, I'm trying to explain it that way because that's easier to grab than for people that are coming from the application server's point of view.
Yeah.
Unit is our answer as an universal web app server to simplify that stack. What does it mean? It actually means that you can run your application code on Unit. So Unit is for developers, helping them to operate, run, deploy their applications more easy and more consistently within Docker, on NVM, wherever you want, basically.
Right. And my understanding is it's a polyglot solution, meaning you can use not only just any language you want, but a multitude of languages,
There's-
even within the same solution
Right.
that you're
Yes,
working
and
on.
multiple versions of each
Right,
language, which
right.
I think is usually even more important than multiple languages.
Right. So, for example, you have a general Python API, and that Python API creates some PDF documents, right? And for PDF documents, you would like to have something like Puppeteer on Node You can, of course, have two separate containers and deploy them on Kubernetes in the one service, or even in a set of a pod to have both containers, but it's hell of a complex stuff. You have two containers, you have a network boundary over the container, like from one to another. All right, that's a thing that is operational, very, very complex. Another thing you can do is you can put both into one container, but then you have this difficulty of how to let I have multiple processes in this container. I have a Python app. I have a Node.js process. I have to basically start or run. So who's taking care of these processes?
Yeah.
And that's where Unit comes in and makes this whole thing easy. As Unit has this universal idea of multiple runtimes, we have actually implemented 7 different languages natively in Unit. So you can run, as said, Python code, Perl, PHP, Go, Node.js, Java, and it's all in one single instance of Unit. And on top of it, that means Python API next to the Node.js thing in the same container on the same Unit instance without any problems. And that makes it just easier because in your Python API, you can define, if I want to generate this PDF, for example, and with Puppeteer, I know this is always localhost port 3000. Always, because it's in the same container, it's on the Unit instance, or you can even use network socket if you really want to.
Yeah.
Not a problem at all.
That's
That's the thing where Unit comes into play and makes it very easy for you as an engineer to define your application deployments. On top of that, we have I call it like mini ingress in Unit. That's a very, very feature-rich HTTP router that can take care of the incoming HTTP request and can make routing decisions based on any HTTP metadata you can think of, based on the HTTP method, on URIs, on arguments, on headers and cookies and its values. And if like the host name is this and the URI is that, and even a specific argument has this value, and there's a header with this value and a cookie with that value, then I would like to send this request to this application. So that's all in one single component.
That's crazy.
And even better, you can configure it with JSON. And as it's configurable with JSON, we have a REST API endpoint in Unit per default. So if it's running in containers, perfect. You just dump the JSON configuration file in an entry point directory, and it will be configured per default. If you run it on a VM and you would like to have dynamic reconfigurations without even reload anything on this Unit instance, use the RESTful API and send HTTP requests to Unit to let Unit reconfigure. It's based on the request you send without reloading. You don't have to go to that machine and type anything like reload Unit for whatever reason. So
So you just send in a JSON and Unit takes it from there.
Right.
Yeah. That's awesome. So back to the YouTube series that you were talking about. The entirety of the series, as I understand it, is how do you go from a basic implementation and then get more complicated from there?
Right. It starts with the basic understanding about what Unit is, and then it covers all the installation processes on different operating systems, from standard Debian or Ubuntu based to Mac with Homebrew to WSL on Windows.
Nice.
Like no matter what platform you're using as an engineer, you will find a corresponding video that will teach you, okay, how to get started with Unit on my specific platform. And after that, so after the installation part, the rest is basically identical, independent from the platform, because the configuration is identical, the configuration API is identical. It's not a matter of the platform then anymore.
Excellent. So future episode,
Nginx Unit.
Nginx Unit, and I'll do the WSL2 one. You can do the Mac version or Linux version, whatever you want to do. I mean, I do either. I'll do Mac, Linux, Windows. It doesn't matter. I'm a polyglot human being when it comes to operating systems. So, but I'll take the Windows instance because most people don't want to.
Right. I mean, I'm good with WSL.
I used to be a Windows person until I started using Macs for development. I still am a Windows person, except for like actual development.
Well, so I cut my teeth, and maybe this is the. So what about So 2 things. I know that we have this really, really interesting demo that's out on GitHub, which is essentially a calculator, which I think is, if you ever want to kind of get your brain around why this is a big deal, go look at that demo, look at the code behind the demo, And in a nutshell, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, it's basically a calculator where every button on the calculator is written into different code, or it uses different code to implement every single button. So one is a Python button, one is a Perl button, one is a et cetera, et cetera. So that's one thing that that I think if people just want to go, well, I don't get it. That that calculator was amazingly useful for me to go, oh, okay, I understand.
That's what it does.
Yeah, that's very cool. So and this is I cut my teeth on a solution called Unity, which is basically the same thing. It was similar, but it's a game development tool.
Mhm.
And you could code in Boo, which is a variant of, I think that's Boo.
I've
I
never
think
heard
it's-
of that, and I've
yeah,
looked
I
into
think
Unity
it's
in the past.
what is the I forget what it is. It was Boo,
Boo.
Java, and Mono developed, which is C#, right?
Yeah,
So
C# is like,
so
I don't know.
my question is new language support. Have we thought about is any of that on the horizon?
Right. So one exciting thing is we are working on a server-side implementation of WASM.
Okay.
So you will be able to
Okay.
use Unit to run your WASM binaries, basically. So that's definitely on the horizon. And then another thing that will come within the next release, which is not only 4 weeks ahead of us, so it's
Yeah, like
it's
next
pretty
month. end of
it's
next
pretty
month,
close, pretty close. Is we implemented the NJS runtime we already know from
Okay.
Nginx into Unit, so you can basically enhance
Very
your
cool.
configuration on Unit with the same NJS kind
Yeah,
idea
that'd be cool.
that
can
you
open
already-
so many doors.
that you already have from Nginx. So that is a huge thing. So
Yeah.
next release is the JavaScript one, and then we will add the WASM runtime to Unit, and then we'll see what's next. I mean, we are not stopping developing the language support. One big thing, one very giant, and this comes from my heart, because I would like to make the user experience using Unit with like all these different languages and in all possible versions as simple as issuing a single
Yeah.
command.
Yes.
So this is
That would be
definitely
awesome.
the final goal, saying I would like to use the newest version of Python just to test if my application is still working with that, or Node.js has a release candidate. I would like to try that out. And the final solution for Unit will be you issue one single command. It will configure everything that's needed to make this work. This is the final goal. It's a
That's very
So
cool.
we're gonna implement ChatGPT with Unit and be like,
I
"Hey,
s-
Unit, can you deploy Python?"
it's I mean, I'm not a super AI person. So I don't know if I can solve any of those problems with AI. Maybe yes, but at the moment I'm looking more from
real
an,
question is,
language
would you really
support,
want to?
from a more
Yeah.
technical level on that. So
Yeah.
it's doable. It's just a lot of work to like have all
Yeah.
this packaging and management of dependencies on the system
Like you gotta take
tied together.
Yeah, and you gotta take one step at a time. Like right now with NJS and then WASM eventually.
That's it. So-
That's good enough for now. We'll
Well,
see
I'm
what
going to
we're
put
gonna
my shameless plug in for C#, just because that's my native language, and I would love to have C# support in Unit. So maybe somewhere in the future that'll be
Maybe
done.
when we do the Nginx Unit episode, you can
But
do your own spiel. You go
I can
about
do
why we
Python.
should support
That's
C#.
fine. That works for me as well.
Right.
Yeah. Final question before you go off. Have you had a chance to go around Kubecon? What's been your highlight so far?
Connect with people. I mean, that's my biggest highlight. It feels great to be at the booth, getting connected with people, talk to people again, get feedback from them. That was for me personally the most dramatic thing over the whole COVID period, that we did not have the chance to talk to people in real world, face to face. I mean, you can do a lot with Zoom calls, but like after 8
It's not
hours
the
of
same.
Zoom calls,
Yeah.
it's not the
Yeah.
same, and it's just super enjoyable for me to stay at the booth, getting in touch with people, talk again
Yeah.
about Nginx, what's new, and chat about challenges they have. So that is my number one experience at KubeCon, getting
Excellent.
back to the normal.
Getting back to the normal. That would be a great theme for
It could be
an
like a
event,
slogan for
getting
something
back
like
to
that.
normal.
Yeah,
I would
like
agree.
that.
I mean, I miss that. I mean, like I've said multiple times, I've been at every single KubeCon since the one in Seattle. So, and I got my socks to prove it. I really was looking when Detroit came around. I was like, I gotta go. I couldn't agree with you more. Seeing people, talking to them, stories, just nothing like it. So, all right.
Yeah. All right, I
Well-
think that's all for this.
All right.
block.
Well, thank you.
Thanks
for
for
coming on.
having me.
Yeah,
I wish
absolutely.
you-
It's good finally get
Maybe
to
we'll have you
sit down
again
and have
when
a
we
chat.
do the NGINX Unit episode. Why
There
Yeah,
not?
you go.
sure. So I'll head back to the booth
Okay.
Yeah.
to engage with our users.
All right.
See
And
you
I'll
later.
wish you,
Right.
have fun,
Wait.
guys.
Take care. All right. So we've got two more people coming on. Yeah, two more people.
Time flies when you're having fun.
Yeah,
but
yeah,
also
yeah.
my throat is dry.
I kind of gave up on my. I think I had a 3:00 appointment that I
Yeah,
forgot
yeah.
about. I was so into the unit discussion. I was like, I don't want to go to. I completely
Yeah,
forgot
I
about
myself at some stage.
it. Sorry
I'll
to
get
the
some-
person. To the. It
popcorn.
was for the headshots. You know, they're giving it. Let everybody do
Oh
headshots.
yeah.
Yeah, I blew through that appointment.
Oh, I
You
to
wanted
go
that.
there just randomly ask if they'll just take a headshot of me with an appointment. They might have.
Well, if you showed up
time
at
I
like
walk
3:00, they probably would have slotted.
I mean, I still haven't now developed that DeLorean to go back in time, but
Yeah,
maybe
yeah.
next year. I'll
Maybe
go
next
back
year.
to this year, 3 p.m.
Yeah. So who do we have next?
Next we have Kira, who's right there. So I'm just gonna ask her to join us and introduce herself, because why not?
Hey guys.
Welcome.
Hello,
Welcome to the Engine Room Show,
our engine room.
episode 2.
Did we ever tell people why it was called the engine room?
No, I don't know if we have. I mean, I know we talked about why we made the show.
Yeah, but
But
not
not
the
why
name.
we named it that way.
Maybe we should let you do it now, today, or maybe we can really quickly.
Yeah.
Everyone
I
can
mean,
tell you too about it. It's
yeah,
cool.
We'll tell
Maybe.
you about it, then we'll ask you a question.
Yes. Then you can introduce yourself.
Yeah.
Okay.
There you go.
Sounds good.
Tell us about it.
Well,
Because you came with the name originally. With the
yeah. So for me, it was like I was trying to think of something that would be catchy that people could remember. And Engine X has always had this mystique for me from as far back as I can remember. I mean, I've been in this industry for 25 plus years, and I've known of Engine X, not working for them, but working with Engine X for probably the same amount of time. So at 25 years, so probably less than 5 years of my career, I've known about Engine X, and I knew it was the right way to pronounce it for and it. So
For some reason.
the fact that it is, if you split it, it's Engine X. So I kind of look at it as the engine that runs the internet. So it is on a great many of web servers and web applications out there. So it just seemed like a good juxtaposition to just go ahead and call it the Engine Show, or the Engine Room. Plus, I kind of feel like if you think of Kubernetes like a ship, which is the kind of the theme, we're the engine room of Kubernetes. So there you have it. That's where that came from.
It was
I like it.
originally going to be called the engine room, like
Yeah,
without the E.
NGIN.
Yeah, NGIN, but then I kind of made the
Yeah.
executive
I'm glad
call
you,
of
I'm
just
glad
being
you
like,
came up
hey,
with that because
people are just going to read it this like
Yeah.
engine.
yeah, we're
That
called
up, it's like we're telling people that they're pronouncing
Ninja
engine X
Show.
wrong, and then we're just going to confuse people even more. Let's just make it the actual engine.
You know, we
room.
should have asked Timo while we had him, or maybe we can ask you. We really want an application to be developed called Ninja X.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's get noodling on what that could be.
Yeah.
All right, anyways.
All right, with that, let's get introducing.
What do you do? What's your role at Engine X? Introduce yourself a little bit.
Okay, so
What do you even do here?
What do we even
No,
do here? Sometimes
no.
I ask no. My name is Kira Steck. I'm a senior software engineer on the Kubernetes Ingress Controller team. So we're part of the Kubernetes Solutions group here at NGINX.
Yes.
Cool.
Yes, I've spent many hours with your work. So.
I don't know.
Yeah.
What
so,
else?
So
This is why
we
we're doing
had a
live.
couple of people. We had a couple. There's a gentleman on earlier who comes from one of our configuration. They're a solutions engineering group out of the Netherlands, and I'm just going to ask so new features on the horizon. How much of those could you? I know I can. You can only say so much, right? Without Brian coming after you.
No, pretty
Um,
much.
Yeah. So, but anything that you could share with the public about new stuff coming for NGINX Ingress?
Yeah,
What's on the
absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. So we've done some kind of a pretty exciting things recently. So some of those we're going to continue enhancing. So we've recently improved our JAX support so that you can now use JAX URI to as part of your implementation.
Okay.
And we're always continuously enhancing our OIDC implementation. So really getting those kind of enterprise authorization use cases out there and more mature. We recently implemented something called Deep Service Insight, which is something that's actually pretty exciting that we'll probably continue enhancing as well, which is that using the advanced health checks of the Nginx, of Nginx Plus, to be able to see to give you an endpoint to query so that you can make advanced routing decisions from outside of your cluster based on service health. So if you had 2 active clusters, that you could do failover between them by service basis by switching your DNS endpoint. So that's one of the cool things that's coming out at the moment.
So I work with a lot of partners in my job, and the Rancher integration with Nginx Ingress is one of my babies. Any integrations that you can that you'd like if you were to say, hey Dylan, there's solutions out there that we'd like to have integrations with, can you go build a relationship with them and get us in touch so we can do some dev work around that? Any integrations that you can think of off the top of your head that you would love to see built up around Nginx Ingress?
Yes and no. So no, perhaps not very specific ones, because I know we have built up some really good relationships with partners, and that's excellent. I think just continuing growing anywhere that you can imagine there's Kubernetes marketplace, we're going to probably have customers or would like to have customers in that space. So I think it's really fantastic. So the stuff that we have with Rancher or our partnership with OpenShift or all these different places, we're in AWS marketplace. We've just gone into GKE marketplace. So it's really exciting to be in these areas. I know next I think we're talking about getting into Azure marketplace. So I think any of these partner locations where we can work together to build a better experience for our customers, they're always worth it.
Awesome. Yeah. So there's a few ones that right now we've been talking with Rancher about doing. They have something similar to the Docker.
Rancher Desktop, right?
Yeah. So they have Rancher Desktop, but they also have for Rancher proper RKE, RK2.
Oh,
they have,
runtime. Yeah.
Basically, I think they're also called extensions. So they have this whole extension architecture. That's something that they're interested in partnering with us on. And basically, if you were to say something like, I want to take our CRDs and I want to build them into essentially a user interface that you can basically, instead of firing off a YAML or updating your CRDs and inside the cluster so that you can take advantage of our CRDs, you basically build it into the Rancher UI as an extension. So I know that's something that probably will be coming down the pipe from me, because they want us to be. They just started it and they approached us and they said, we really want you guys to be like patient zero. We want you and with SUSECon coming up in Munich, Germany, they are keenly interested in seeing how far we can get between now and then to get with those extensions running. So that's one of the things that I think is.
Yeah, when is SUSECon?
SUSE, you know what SUSE is?
Right? Yeah. I mean, when is it?
Oh, geez, I don't know. I think it's June.
Yeah.
So it's really close.
Yeah, it's really close.
Yeah. I mean, but worst case scenario, I think we could come up with a prototype.
Yeah, that's usually good enough for things like this.
That sounds really cool. I can imagine that really making kind of developer self-service a lot easier, those kind of extensions, because it kind of minimizes the knowledge sprawl that developers have if they have some sort of an interactive UI. That sounds really cool.
Yeah, and it's almost like having like those little one-shot. There's a lot of little nooks and crannies when it comes to Kubernetes that to some degree can be frustrating. And while I'm not a big fan of user interfaces, I think that having those, at least for the 50,000 foot view, are super useful inside of Kubernetes clusters. So, so Kubecon, how long have you been at this event this week? Do you want to ask the question, the what's your favorite thing question?
Sure, why not? Have you been wandering around Kubecon? That's been your favorite highlight so far?
So mostly my favorite highlight, not so much the wandering around, but actually talking to Nginx users. I found the conversations at the booth have been just fascinating. The amount of different environments and customer configurations that are out there, and hearing about how people are using Nginx in the wild. I thought that's definitely the most useful experience.
How many people have you asked which version of the Ingress controller are you using, and to reply the community Kubernetes supported Ingress controller version you work on?
If I had €1 for every time somebody asked that question, I think I could probably retire. Yeah, a lot of people, and there's a huge confusion around it. So there's also what I discovered: people are now understand that Nginx have a version of the
Okay.
Ingress controller, and that there's the
You need to
community
wrap up.
version of the Ingress controller, but they don't. There is a misconception that ours is not that the Nginx supported one is just commercial only, and that this is not the
Okay.
case. So we're open source and free, and you can use the open source Nginx. So that's the biggest learning I've found that there's.
Well, that means at least we're making some progress because like last year, no one knew we had
Yep.
our own extra so at least they think we have a version of that.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
One
Of
step
course
at a
we do.
time.
One step at a time. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is good. The feedback has been very positive. People
Cool.
love Nginx.
Well, yeah. Yesterday when we were chatting about things we could talk about on one night when you came in, you mentioned the Kubernetes gateway.
Yeah.
Yeah. What's
Gateway API.
Gateway API.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mentioned that was, and I think both of you mentioned that was potentially a big
Yeah.
deal. Well,
Yeah.
no, like I'm really not the Kubernetes expert. Like that's probably one of the major main tech area that is very big that I've never delved really that much into it. But I know enough. I know what the Ingress controller is. No idea what the Gateway API is. What is it? Why is it such a big deal?
Well, the Gateway API is a new initiative from not that new anymore, but it's from the network group of Kubernetes. So what it is, it's basically like an evolution of the Ingress API. So Ingress API it's been around for quite a while now, and there is some learning. So obviously, no implementation of networking resources are going to be perfect. So the Gateway API is kind of the next evolution of the Ingress API. So we have been working on an implementation of the Gateway API for quite a while now, and we have a beta version out there. We're focusing on the three main objects of the Kubernetes of the Gateway API, which is Gateway class, Gateway, and HTTP route. So we're coming up with an implementation of these three. So it's called Nginx Kubernetes Gateway thing. So Gateway API is an evolution of Ingress, but we foresee that Ingress and Gateway are going to be living side by side for quite a while. Gateway is still very much in its infancy. A couple of the CRD, or there's a couple of the resources have gone into beta, but they're not quite,
they're not still
there. Yeah, they're not there yet. So you're not going to deploy that in production. But we definitely have users who are deploying it and starting to get used to the implementation now.
Cool.
Yeah.
That's good to know.
And last Kubecon in Detroit, if you go up on our YouTube, you'll find a video that was with me and Matt Iacobucci where we talked about, I think it was the release that was happening at that time. So if you want to learn more, go up to YouTube, search through the list, and you'll find Matt went into a really long dissertation about how what the Gateway API was, and from a much more nuts and bolts kind of level.
Yeah.
So, and Marco, I think you say we're coming up on time? Or?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So, any final words before we wrap up?
No, just the last thing to say, it's so great being at Kubecon, being with everybody, and feels like the world's back to normal.
Yes.
It's very refreshing.
It was good to meet you for the first
same.
time. Yes.
Absolutely. Thanks,
All right.
Dylan.
Thanks for coming.
See you again.
Yeah, I'll see you in like 5 minutes, right?
Okay. Thanks, guys.
All right. So, looks of it like we're gonna have to end the show a little bit.
Yeah, we got to end a little bit early today, but
it happens. It's Kubecon.
Those things happen.
We're doing it live and whatnot. So
I'm guessing it has something to do with batteries.
yeah,
Elon Musk needs to get to work better.
yeah.
Get us.
But we will hopefully have Hannah next time instead. So
Yes,
you know,
yes, absolutely.
Don't
We'll
waste
have
your
our
time.
first guest next time.
Yeah,
All right.
for sure.
All
All right.
So once again, thank you for joining us on the second episode of the Engine Room Show.
Yes.
I got it.
You got it.
I got it this time. And yeah, live from KubeCon, and we'll see you next time.
All right. Yeah. Bye. I guess. Have a good one. Thanks for
Take
joining.
care.
And see you next time.
I'll do your thing. I'll go, yay.
Yay!